Hello and welcome to this update from Bennett International Education Consultancy. This is an effort on our part to keep our partners and clients up to date on the latest developments regarding COVID-19 pandemic and how it is impacting education around the world. Today, we're going to look at the pandemic issue from a number of perspectives. For families currently on assignment, some things for them to think about and some options. For families thinking about future assignments. For employers and relocation management companies. And finally, to direct you all to our website where we have ongoing information in this rapidly changing environment. So for families currently on assignment, whether it be in a host location or perhaps who have just come home from an assignment, some update on what's happening with the public and or state school systems. There has been, as many of you know, a wide-scale shift toward distance learning around the world, but a lot of variation in implementation depending upon the specific location. So for example, in France, the Centre National d'Éducation à Distance is a system that already existed to provide My Class at Home platform for distance learning. This enabled French students, wherever they were around the world, to fully participate in the French system. They have adapted that and have been relatively good with implementation. That has gone smoothly. Germany has shifted toward online education despite the fact that there is a long history in that country of prohibition against any form of homeschooling or distance learning, and very much an inclination to encourage children to be participating in person in schools. In Spain, we're seeing the use of television to supplement internet platforms in recognition of the fact that many children may not have internet access or the appropriate technology to access online classes. In lesser developed countries, we're seeing the use of radio as an additional supplement to internet access, because in many of those cases, even television is not available. Ireland had a very promising rollout of an online system, but it crashed within a few days, and there was some catch-up work to get that back online. Now it appears to be. And then in the USA, we're seeing very different implementation depending upon which state and even which district or locality the school is located. A wide variety of approaches. On the bright side, some schools in the Asia Pacific region are now aiming to resume normal classes in the middle or the end of this month. Of course, much of that depends upon the progress of the pandemic and progress of the battle against the pandemic. But let's watch that space and see if hopefully schools will be starting to get back to normal in that region. So around the world, a great many exams, not surprisingly, have been impacted. So for example, the International Baccalaureate exams, the IB being something widely used by international schools and domestic schools around the world, have been canceled for this term. In Belgium, the CESS exams have been canceled. They were due to happen in March and April. Ministry of Education is updating its website, so we'll keep an eye on that and see when they reschedule. In France, happily, because of their already existing online platform, the baccalaureate exams scheduled for June are still scheduled to take place in June. And we will have to just watch that and see how they progress against the pandemic. In Germany, the Abitur has been postponed and no date has been set. In Holland, we're looking at a little bit more flexibility. They're doing it very much on a school-by-school basis. In Singapore, the exams scheduled for the March holiday period have been canceled, and individual test centers are looking at rescheduling those, reaching out to affected pupils. In the UK, the GCSE and A-level exams were canceled. And similarly, the parallel exams, which are offered by the Cambridge curriculum, Cambridge company, have also been canceled. And we're still waiting to find out when those will be rescheduled. In the United States, advanced placement, AP exams will be administered online. The ACT and SAT exams for the time being are on hold, and we're waiting to hear when those will be rescheduled. So even with all of these changes going on, many schools are still open for admissions, if not actually conducting classes. So what is the advantage for completing applications now? One is that given the current state of flux with regard to schools and so many administrators working from home, it may take a lot more time to pull together the required documentation, like transcripts and teacher recommendations. So it would be a good idea to start making those requests now, even though it's far in advance potentially of an assignment. Give it more time because it's going to take more time. Secondly, by delaying applications, it may mean that there'll be more competition when schools and assignments are reactivated at a later date. This could especially be true if some schools and some host locations end up not reopening. There is a risk, we still don't know, it's early days, but there is still a risk that some locations, the pandemic economic impact may cause some schools to close permanently. This is something, again, we're keeping an eye on. Similarly, in the Asia-Pacific region, there are some schools hoping to reopen in April. So already we're going to see an uptick in demand for the upcoming school year. So this too is a good argument for getting the application process underway sooner rather than later. So for schools around the world that are no longer open for in-person visits, some of the things that we suggest families can do to better familiarize themselves with those schools include these. One would be to understand how the school has handled the COVID-19 pandemic. It's very important to see how a school reacts to and responds to crises, whether it be a pandemic or some other type of concern, weather-related or something else. It tells you a lot about a school when you see how they respond to difficult circumstances. It's also a good idea to think about the people that you would have wanted to meet during an actual school visit, whether it be a special needs teacher, teacher of a particular subject, a chaplain, a coach, an administrator. Ask the school to arrange conversations with these people through some form of online medium or via telephone. There's still the opportunity to get to know them, even if you can't actually shake their hands at the moment. It's also good to understand how a school thinks their demographics are going to change in the upcoming year. It is possible that some schools will end up admitting more of, let's say, local students than they might have otherwise in order to fill their ranks. So understanding that may have an impact on how attractive that school is to a particular family. And then finally, families should make use of uncurated online information, by which we mean things like YouTube videos that families post of school trips or theater performances or classroom presentations, or looking at online parent forums for particular schools. But it's also important to remember in doing that research that these sources can be biased. Families can have a very strong feeling in favor or against a particular school, and it's important to understand that those opinions exist out there, but it's also important to remember that's the opinion of one particular family and needs to be taken with the proverbial grain of salt. For employers, what are some of the things that employers should be thinking about? Certainly, again, even if an assignment is at risk of not happening, to make sure that you put your families in the queue, put them in line for schools in high demand locations. It's good to get the application process underway so that if the assignment does go forward, this is one less thing to worry about. We always encourage families and the employers to carefully review contracts for enrollment in schools. This is especially true now because with the risk that a deposit may be made and then the family not attending due to the pandemic, it's not just a risk of losing the deposit, but oftentimes enrollment contracts put the family and the employer on the hook for the entire year's tuition. That's something to be aware of and to understand. There have been some instances where schools have now begun to offer a provision that if they don't open for a particular term, that they're willing to reimburse the deposit. But that's something, again, that is very school and contract specific and should be understood. Companies also need to think about the additional assistance that families are looking for in this unusual situation. So things like how one handles the costs of online learning and tutoring, or even additional childcare in host locations. These are the types of things that have not often been in assignment or mobility policies, but increasingly will need to be. So looking at these provisions and figuring out what's right for your employee population is absolutely crucial. And it is something that we are helping many employers with. What else have we done? We've adapted our placement service to fit the current situation. So in addition to what we normally do, the long-range planning like intake interviews of the families so we understand their concerns and their preferences, help in drawing up lists of target schools and the host locations, preparations of interview and applications, and much more. We're also doing things like updating families on what's changing with exams around the world. We're helping families look at the different options for distance learning. This is a very complicated area. There are a great many curricula and a great many platforms that are available. And it's very important that families choose online options which are accredited and which will ensure that the child continues in their education progress. It's not just a matter of keeping a child busy by showing them documentaries, but making sure that they continue to earn credit. We're also offering recommendations around the appropriate tutors in different locations. And again, in most cases, tutoring is now available online, even for very young students. All of this information and more, we're continuing to update at our blog posts and via our new COVID-19 education website. So please do visit those two places frequently. This is a rapidly changing environment. Things are happening day by day, hour by hour, and we're doing our best for our clients and their families to keep up to date and current with the most recent developments. We'll continue to update, and we hope that you will reach out to us whenever you have questions or concerns regarding employees and their families' education. In the meantime, we wish you all continued good health and much business success in a challenging environment. Thank you.